everyone. This is Kathy Mason from Mason Works Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend Sue Frederick. Hi, Sue.
Hey, Kathy, it's so great to see you again.
Yes, Sue and I have known each other, I think, 30 years. Oh, my God.
Since the 80s, yeah.
I know. I'm like going 80s, 90s. Oh, my God. Well, but we're not going to say how old we are. But Sue is a gift to all of us, and I can't wait for you to discover how she might be able to help you during these changing times. She's an ordained Unity minister now. When I knew her, she wasn't, but she's always been an intuitive, a past life regressionist therapist. She works with souls at a very high level, and she's a master numerologist, which I guess I just totally forgot about, but I'm definitely going to want to take your classes. And she's a beautiful writer. When I first met Sue, she was a publisher of some fantastic magazines, and she always had an article at the beginning of the magazine, and so that's how I met you as an amazing writer. Yeah. So, but now you're doing so many things that are going to help people go through these changing times, because change is kind of a death in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of the same processes that you might go through as you respond to things in high change times, which we are in. We're in a tornado of change, are the same processes that you bring to all of your work. So Sue, so people get to know you, could you start and explain a little bit about your journey, what got you interested in actually using your incredible intuitive powers and in service to everyone?
Yeah. Well, actually, it goes back to the 70s, and I was an outward bound mountaineering instructor then and leading groups up the 14,000-foot mountains of Colorado. I love the Colorado Rockies. And I was married to a beautiful mountain climber named Paul Frederick. And we just thought we were sort of invincible, And he was diagnosed with stomach problems, and then it was the 70s. And so by the time they said it was colon cancer, they gave him 2 weeks to live. And we thought it was going to be our overcoming challenge and that we would create a miracle and cure him. And we did conventional healing and alternative. And he spent a year suffering as we both worked to find a cure. And then his last couple of months were so conscious that his spirit was leaving his body that at the moment of his death, he took me on a shared death experience, took me to the divine realms to see it with him, and showed me his spirit as he was leaving his body, came back that night with messages. I mean, he just came back almost physically with me the first night, got in bed with me, held me. I could feel him against my body. And then a being of light reached over and tapped him, and he had to keep moving on. And so his guide kept him going. And since then, that was one of many experiences I've had of being lifted into the divine to see things from what I call the divine lens or the soul's view. And I'll explain this vision in a minute. And then a year after that, my best childhood girlfriend was diagnosed with leukemia, and she brought me on a shared death experience as well. Hers was amazing. She took me with her that night. I didn't even know she had crossed that night. And all night she was with me, making me laugh so hard that my stomach muscles were hurting. And she was flying me around to see our friends. And when I woke up that morning, I went, wow, I was with Chrissy all night. And then I realized, oh my gosh. And I picked up the phone and called her mom. And her mom said she had crossed that night, but she had come to me right away to show me that it was all joy and laughter. And she was completely healthy out of her body. And that was the second shared death experience. And I've had so many out of body and shared death experiences to help me see that this is only a brief physical journey here. There is no death. And I've written and published 11 books on spiritual principle, but I'll also say that after Paul died, the first thing that helped me understand the whole why had I gone through this? Why had Paul gone through it? Where was he? Is there a God? It was all answered for me in 1980 when I did a numerology reading from someone else, gifted it to me. And she showed me in 1 hour my life path, Paul's life path, our soul agreement, all through numerology, and explained why I was still here, why I couldn't go and join Paul. Numerology in 1980 became my obsession, even though, like Kathy said, I was a writer and I made my living then as a magazine editor and then eventually a VP of content, all for health websites. But all along, I was doing people's numerology charts for free and studying it and learning it and downloading it, more information about it from my spirit guides. And then in 1999, my writing career crashed and burned with the .com crash. I had been hired to be the VP of content for so many big websites, and all of a sudden they all went down one after another in 1999. And it was my soul awakening point where in the dark night of my soul, I was a single mom. I didn't want to lose my home. And my spirit guide said, "Hey, Sue, it's about time you realize that all that stuff you've been giving away for free, intuitive work with people, numerology, that's what you're here to share and make your living from." And that's when I really reinvented and launched the business I've been doing for more than 20 years, helping people remember their soul mission through numerology, helping them understand their soul agreements, why they're here, and most importantly, how to connect to their departed loved ones, even using numerology as an aid to doing that.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad that I know, because when I started Conscious Business Zone, I think I told you before we came on, I actually had done the numerology to pick the name and picked it, but I hadn't pulled the trigger until something happened. And then it was like, okay. But I still do think that there's so much power in the unseen order of the divine that we can reach through numerology, that allows you to really make sense of it. It's almost, I last night I was with a bunch of incredible magical women, and we were talking about the sixth sense. And a lot of what you do and your writing is so beautiful. I have all your books except the new one, and I'll get that. And now I'm going to take a class, but also, but what you find is that Zoom makes it the pathway to this other higher intuition and knowing and expansive consciousness. She makes it available to you.
Yeah.
And that's really how I see the gift of your work. And she's as beautiful inside as she is out.
Thank you, Kathy. So are you.
Thank you.
Well, the reason I love numerology is that, I've worked with thousands of clients over the decades using numerology, and even the most cynical client who might come to me saying, "Oh, my wife told me I need to do a session with you." I get a lot of husbands that way. By the end of the session, they're like, "Wow, this was extraordinarily helpful." And whether they're trying to align their soul mission with their career, which my first book, I See Your Dream Job, was all about understanding how to make your career your true spirit work and make money from that, using numbers to help you figure that out. But also grief. Grief has been my greatest spiritual wake up. Paul dying in my arms when I was 29, 30 years old. that was a huge awakening to the fact that our spirits and the divine realms are more real than this physical world. And so when I work with grieving people, especially grieving parents, their children come through so strongly to help the parents, because the children know how much the moms and dads are suffering, and they want to help them carry on with their soul mission here. And so they come through so clearly to help the parents understand why they're still here, what their soul agreement is with their departed, and how to understand how to move forward from that. And I love working with those children's spirits. They are so vital and alive and positive and helpful, no matter how they crossed. And so that is truly the greatest joy of my life, is working with them.
So, you're now a Unity minister. How has that affected everything that you're doing? Because you already had a spiritual side to everything you were doing. It wasn't like you had to do that to do your work, but this probably adds a whole nother layer to it.
Yeah.
Can you share
Well,
that?
yeah, I mean, many people who know me know that I have, like, I grew up Catholic. In my 20s, I studied Theosophy, Native American spirituality. In the 80s and 90s, I lived in a Hindu ashram, had a Hindu and Buddhist teacher, practiced many Eastern traditions. I'm been meditating every day since the 70s, using Hindu mantras, Sanskrit mantras. And when I dipped my toe in all of those spiritual paths, I gathered so much truth and beauty of understanding God and what God is. And I came to my own understanding that God is an all good, loving consciousness force that runs this universe and runs all of us, is in our hearts, all good, all God universe. And guess whose principle that is? Unity. Unity brings that together. And I'd been going to Unity of Boulder since the 80s, along with being in an ashram. I was always studying all of it. And so I had a calling in it was after I had this vision. So I'm going to talk about this vision in a minute. I had a calling in around 2017 to become a Unity minister and go through the 4 years of intense ministry school, because I felt that that was going to even help kick my vibration to a higher level. Because in 2017, we kind of knew the world was shifting into the intensity of where it is now. And I felt that I needed another spiritual reboot to be able to ride that wave of energy and help as many people as I could. And Unity Ministry School was phenomenal. I got to study the history of Christianity and what the original Aramaic text in the Bible said. And by the way, Jesus was one of our great enlightened teachers. And he said this one thing: I give you a new commandment. It's more important than all the rest. It is to love one another. And that is the mantra for our times that we're in right now. So becoming a Unity minister, having that depth of spiritual understanding behind me, allows me to help so many more clients, especially clients who've lost a loved one to perhaps suicide, and they are suddenly rejected from their Christian fundamentalist church, and they're wondering if their departed is okay. And those children are saying, yes, we are glorious. We're in the angelic realms. You know, that whole Bible story was rewritten by men years after Jesus crossed. And Jesus never said that people would be condemned to hell. That was written later into the Bible. So being able to help people from that perspective of talking to them about their fundamentalist beliefs, helping them expand those beliefs so that they're not walking around with a terrible guilt story about someone they love crossing.
Yep. That's what I love about so much of the ions and the near-death experiencing information.
Yes.
There's an echo. Anyway,
Anyway,
so
so
much of
much
it
of it
allows you
allows you
to
to
release
release
the
the
burden
Yeah.
burden
of
of
shame
shame
and
and
blame.
blame,
And
and
it's not
it's not
just
just
forgiveness, it's
forgiveness,
Yeah.
more
it's
than
more
just
than
that.
just that.
Yes.
It's a lot
A
of
lot of
the
the
opportunity to
opportunity to
say
say
that
that
I'm
I'm
creating
creating
Yes.
a paradigm
paradigm
under
under
shame and
shame
not
and not
God.
Yeah,
God.
that I created a life plan. And that's what numerology lays out for people. You know, I created a life plan where I would have a certain kind of childhood that was painful to me and just the way I needed to have it. So I would grow and search for different answers. And then I created the life plan of my first true love dying in my arms of cancer, because that was my greatest spiritual wake up call. Without, I often think now, you know, because I'm in my 70s and people do a lot of self-examination as they get older. It's part of the process. We start our soul review before we leave the body.
Right.
And as I look back and I think about Paul and I wonder, you know, what would my life have been like if he didn't cross? And I know I would not have become the person I wanted and needed to be in this life. I would have been a very happy wife and mother. I probably would have done writing, but it wouldn't have been this kind of work. And now I can honestly say I've lived up to my soul's purpose and potential that I came in to do on my path. Of course, it's going to keep going. We never stop, you know. And I just graduated from ministry school a couple years ago. So, and I'm just keeping going. Got a new book came out in June, and I'll have another one next year. So,
So could you talk a little bit? I think the echo may be coming from your side, but
oh,
let's see
well,
if
I don't hear an echo when I speak. Do you hear an echo when I speak?
I don't hear an echo for you, but for me. So it's usually your speakers. But let me
All right, I'll turn it
off.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, what I wanted to ask was the impetus for your new book.
Yeah.
It's called The Divine Lens.
Through a divine lens. Yeah. So it comes from the vision that you can see behind me on the screen. In 2014, you know, I was doing a lot of teaching of these grief shifting workshops where I'd work with a room full of grieving people and teach them over a 3-day process how to change their whole story about their grief and loss and really realize that it's part of their life plan and that they have a new relationship with their departed. And I'd guide them into how to have their own healing conversation with their departed. And they would do automatic writing, and they would all get these incredible downloads from their departed. It was so extraordinary. I haven't done one of those workshops for a while, but it was just beautiful. And so I flew home. It was at Kripalu Institute in Massachusetts, and a long flight home. And I got home and I was really exhausted, and I got sick and got like 104 degrees of fever. And by about the third night of that, I had an out-of-body experience. I was taken out of my body and shown the earth. If you can see my screen, I was shown the earth from a distance, held by angels and divine guides. And they said, Sue, those lights shooting up from the earth are every time a soul on earth awakens to their higher consciousness and realizes that they're there on purpose for love and compassion and evolution, and begins to live in alignment with that. And they said, watch how each light, as it sparks, ignites another light. And they were showing me this moving river of light around planet Earth. And they said, you have to remember and you have to teach that the light is always winning, the love is always winning on Earth, no matter how it can look when we're lost in the detail, the minutia of daily life. And they said, things are going to get hard on Earth. Remember, this was 2014. They said things are going to get hard there, and you have to be one of the teachers who says, let's pull back and look at it from the soul view and remember that light is always winning and love is always winning, and not get caught in the minutia of the division, of the fear, of all of the things that have been happening in the last few years. So when I got out of my fever and I started trying to articulate this, my beautiful daughter knows I'm a writer, and she just put the laptop on my desk, on my bed, and I could start writing. And I just basically downloaded this new book through a divine lens, from what the guides were telling me about how we have to view this life, even when it's really hard and really painful. So it has meditation techniques, it has answers to your questions about career and grief and self-doubt and anger, all the things we experience in this physical world as humans. And we have one foot in the human, one foot in the divine, all the time. And that's how it's designed. But we get to choose, are we going to lean more into our divine self, our angelic knowingness, our soul's wisdom? Or are we going to lean more into our ego self, the human mind that says, this is all a tragedy, it's all terrible, fear, be afraid, be angry, be blameful. That's the ego mind. But we all also have the soul talking to us all the time, the God consciousness flowing through saying, the light is always winning, the love is always winning. Take a stand for that and quit arguing and dividing and being afraid. That is the message from the higher realms.
Perfect. So hopefully this won't echo as much. I've got a different microphone. So
Yeah.
It's still echoing.
I don't hear the echo.
Yeah, I'm glad you don't. Other people are, though. I apologize.
Oh,
to
really?
everybody.
Do they hear an echo on my voice?
No, not on your voice. So I think it's the echo from your side, your speakers. But it's all right. We'll figure it out. So what I want people to understand is that Sue is a tremendous resource for you, especially if you're going through these changes and you're having difficulty with your family, or you're questioning your past beliefs.
Yeah.
And wanting to be able to shift, but shift in a loving way.
Yeah.
Because this is, at least in my experience, the box that we've been in
Right.
is totally dissolved.
Yes.
And now is the time to get into the joyful co-creation with others rather than rejection. Would you agree?
Well, how I see it and how the guides have told me, and I get a lot of angelic realm downloads too, and what they've all said is that in the past, we were able to live more in our heads and our ideas, and we could have our opinions and believe that, if I just read enough research and investigate things enough, then I'll be right and I can convince other people that I'm right. And the world kind of went along with that, bumbling along for a long time. And now we're in this incredible pinnacle of consciousness shifting to a higher vibration because we are trying to merge this realm with the divine realms. So the veil is incredibly thin now. That's why so many spirits are visible and we are able to hear our guides and departeds more than ever. But we're also being called to now live from the heart, remembering that message to love one another is the most important commandment, and be able to say, my opinions are different from yours, but I see you as a soul on a journey. I understand and love you as that. I see your pain story, your backstory. I understand why you hold those opinions, and I bless you and I send you unconditional love. That is our only way through this now.
Right. I agree. And I agree being in group with other people that are open and believe that reality, there's two possible realities. One, that everything is for you, and one that everything is
against you. Right. I mean, that's the thing I love about unity, that unity's taught for 100-something years, is that this is a divine universe run by an all-loving God force that has every detail arranged for your benefit, for your growth. And, when Paul died in my arms and I was 29, I had a hard time understanding that the universe was good, because I had watched this young man suffer terribly and die way too young. He was the most loving and sweet man ever. And, Unity Church back then at Boulder, I went there and Reverend Jack Groverland was saying, it's an all good universe and it's all designed for you. And I remember sitting in that audience in 1980 thinking, please, God, help me to see it that way. Because like so many people, when you go through a rough moment, you have so much hurt and anger and pain in your heart. But we're all called to, in the midst of that pain, which is part of our human journey, it's going to be part of our life on earth, to call out for guidance, for lifting up to that higher divine lens view. The moment we call out for that, the moment we quiet the crazy monkey mind, our guides, our angels are so happy to help us. They're so happy to lift us up to a higher perspective, to see it differently, because they are working in our favor. And one of the things I want everyone to know is you have to ask for help from these higher beings, because in many ways, they're not allowed to interfere with us. Like, we have to have our own experience as part of our growth. But the minute we say, hey, I need help, I'm really struggling today, I'm in pain, or I'm grieving, can you help me see this a different way? Can you show me my soul's view? That request is always answered. And that helps us instantly. That instantly lifts us into this higher perspective. And then you can even pull out your pen and paper and do some writing of what you're receiving. Every day I do writing that I get from the angelic realms about this moment in time, because I'm not going to lie with people. There's so much angst in the world right now, as well as so much enlightened thought and moments of God moments, I call them, of seeing that goodness in everything. And we're all vacillating. And that's the tipping point we're at. So you can have your day of feeling anxious, afraid, doubting yourself, or being angry at the world. But as soon as you're able to call out to say, please, divine guides and angelic beings and departed loved ones, lift me into that higher knowingness that aligns with God, with love, with this all good universe, put me in that vibration. We are instantly surrounded by loving beings who help us.
Perfect. So, Sue, I wanted to ask about reincarnation, because I think before, when we knew each other well, you were more Buddhist in your thought process. So now, do you still feel
Yeah.
that there's
Yeah. And here's the cool thing is Jesus talked about reincarnation and believed in it, preached it, and it was written out of the Bible by Pope Benedict at the Council of Nicaea, hundreds of years after Jesus had lived. So, yes, we have reincarnation. However, it's different from how even the Buddhists talk about it.
Okay.
The Buddhists talk about it as this endless cycle of karma. Like all dogmatic religions, they have their own version of heaven and hell. And their version of hell is that you do one wrong thing and you're stuck in that, endless cycle of reincarnation. There's no way to live a life on earth as a human being and not do one wrong thing, because we're here to learn and grow. We're not here to be perfect. And so the Buddhists paint a very negative impression. And actually that bothered me a lot when Paul crossed, because my Buddhist friends in Boulder would say, oh, don't don't call him in to guide you because he's got to move on to the higher realms. And I would go, oh, okay. And then, Paul was coming back all the time to give me messages, and I'd have to think, oh, I don't know if I should interact with him, But now I know, thanks to so many more studies on quantum physics, that time and space are not linear, that everything is happening at once in a way that our left brain logic minds can't grasp. And so our departed come back to us whenever we need them or whenever they want to give us a message. And they can be reincarnating at the same time. Our linear minds just can't fathom that. However, the other thing about reincarnation is, what I know to be true now from the study of numerology and from connecting to my departed loved ones and guides, our soul decides if we're going to come back. So, for example, when I cross over, Paul will be there because he's already showed me he has a job where he helps souls process their lives, do the soul review when they leave the body. And I'm hoping Paul will help me do my soul review. And then my soul will decide, do I feel called to come back to Earth to help out, to get here and try to help shift consciousness and even help my loved ones who I've left behind? Or does my soul feel that I want to study more in the divine realms and assist from there? And I know that I've been an angelic realm soul for many times, and so I've assisted from the divine realms rather than come to Earth. And this time coming to Earth was my choice, and it was very risky. My guide was saying, are you sure? Are you sure you can take this on, this human life that you've planned, and still rise above all the obstacles and heartbreaks of it? And I remember jumping into human life, and the guide was saying, hey, you have a courageous heart. Trust your courageous heart and you'll be okay. Wonderful. And so I jumped in. All of you who are listening, your soul decided to come here. You were not sent here by some endless cycle of reincarnation. You chose this life.
That's perfect. I think it's also important that people realize that you stood in line to get these bodies
right
here right now. This was won the lottery, really.
Completely intentional to come here. Completely.
Yeah. So Sue, in your new book, do you give more methods and perspective on staying in high vibe?
Yeah, many chapters at the end have very helpful steps, practices, daily things to do to help you stay or go to that higher frequency whenever you need to. But the other thing that's in this book that is, I'm so happy to share with people is that a few years ago, I took the training to become a soul regression therapist from the amazing Dr. Linda Bachman, who runs the Ravenheart School. Actually, that's in Boulder, Kathy. And so Dr. Linda Bachman trained me to be a soul regression therapist and take people on journeys to drop into a past life that has significance for our current life, so they can understand who they were and what was happening in that life and how it applies to whatever they're going through today. And then to go to the divine realms and talk to their guides, their council of elders. And I love taking clients on that journey. It's phenomenal. And in the new book, I have transcripts of many of my clients' journeys to go to another lifetime and to process with the guides. And they're extraordinary stories. And so those are interwoven. In fact, my favorite one is a woman who's one of my best friends here. Her name is Elizabeth Boisson. She's the best soul I've ever known. She runs a nonprofit called helpingparentsheal.org, and she lost 2 children many years ago. And so many years ago, she said, I'm going to devote my life to helping parents heal and teaching them there may be another way, that your child is not gone, that your child's spirit is trying to help you. And she started a nonprofit that has 27,000 parents in it now. And they have conferences. I mean, it's the most extraordinary group. But she agreed she wanted to go through one of these soul regressions with me. And in her life, she was a Sat guru in India, meditating all day. And it's really ascended being in India in this cave. She saw it all so vividly. And she would come down into town and she would be fed by the community and she would do healings. And then she would go back to, or it was a he, she was a he in that life. And then she would go back to her cave for meditation and yoga. And she agreed to come into this current life because she would be the person that people could trust when they were grieving their child, and she would be able to help them see that there is no death. And I have to say, if you've ever met this woman in person, Elizabeth Boisson, you absolutely know she was a Sat guru in another life and that she did not need to come back here. And she came back to help us. And that transcript is in my book.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Amy Ovia wrote, I know, I really wonder what the heck my soul.
I know. Me too. You know, it's such a good question to say that, because so many people go, oh, I would never have chosen this. And I was saying that myself when Paul died and Chrissy died right after, and my dad, I was going, I would never have chosen this and they would never have chosen it. But of course, our conscious mind wouldn't choose it, but our soul sees things differently. So again, we go back to those two parts, our physical human self and our divine self. And you've really got to meditate enough, quiet that mind, that you're able to access your higher wisdom. And you've heard it many times in your life whispering to you, saying, hey, don't say that, or don't do that, or take this class. And then your logic, practical mind might come in and delete, your wisdom. Our job as humans is to learn that, yeah, sometimes we need that logic mind. I mean, we've got to make a living, we got to do the laundry, but we also need to let our higher self, our consciousness, our God consciousness be the boss, make the real decisions and the real choices, and that part of us chose this life.
That's perfect. How do you suggest for people to stay in the flow? Like there's an easy way to connect when you do meditate in the morning, but then throughout the day.
Yeah. Well, throughout the day, there's so many tools. A simple one that we all know that, everybody's talked about for decades is gratitude. Like, you can be in your darkest place, and if you simply say, hey, I'm grateful for my cat, you begin to shift that higher into that higher vibration, because it opens your heart. And here's the secret on earth. We think we're here on earth to get love, and that's the greatest myth. And that's why so many marriages don't work, because he wasn't loving me enough. That's so crazy. We are all here to have unconditional love, the God love, pour down through the crown chakra, become in that flow of unconditional love, and then send that unconditional love out to the world and to our loved ones through our heart chakra. And once we're in that flow out, it changes everything. Now we're not going around angry at the world that people maybe don't love us enough, or we had a childhood where mom didn't love us. Now we're suddenly realizing, oh, I'm the teacher. I'm here to be the loving one. I'm here to send that unconditional love out and be that light being. And as we shift it that way, everything falls into perspective.
I'm still trying to fix the echo, so
I
apologize.
Sorry.
I'm glad you can't hear it. What I want people to know that the opportunity to change the environments that we're in is really viable now. And what Sue's talking about is as you really see that you are empowered and you have a huge support system, that it makes you more courageous and makes you have a bigger impact and bigger fortitude. But the other question I have for you is about activism. Because there's still people that are fighting against. How do you hold space for the new?
So here's what I want to say about that. Everybody has their own path. That's what I love about numerology. And there are some people who need to be out in the world trying to get legislation changed and do things like that. That's their mission. That's what they came to do and share and evolve from. But what you also know is that most of us have come to do the inner work of shifting from blame and anger to the higher awareness of love and compassion and deeper wisdom. And that as we do it, we're helping the solutions arrive that the world needs. But I also want to say, we do have to take action. You know, there's a principle in spirituality where you can't just go. I mean, people want to just go and live in an ashram and meditate all day, but you chose a human lifetime on purpose because you agreed to be one of the helpers here. So in your unique path, in your unique way, you are called to help. And that could be anything from legislation to, in my case, working with clients and teaching classes, or for you, it could be being a healer or even marketing conscious businesses like you do, Kathy. Whatever our unique calling, our unique path is, we have to take action in alignment with that.
Right. And that's sage advice. But you can take your foot off the brake now.
Yes.
Right? That's right. It's safe to come out and play now, you guys.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you know, we've got to remember, we didn't come to Earth to party. And, you know, so many New Age teachers really do teach that it's all about manifesting and manifesting what the ego wants, right? You know, going to get that Corvette car. You know, our spirit guides like roll their eyes and go, oh, those crazy humans down there. They think it's about gathering things, right? And so if a teacher is teaching manifestation as a way of accumulating things, they have forgotten that we come here to learn. And if accumulating things, if you're not on an 8 path, which is all about money and power, if you're on a different path, then you didn't come here to get a Corvette. Maybe you came here to write 11 books like me, you know? And so you've got to understand that in your life, manifestation takes its own unique path, and that don't let people judge you if your life doesn't look as successful maybe as theirs does, and they tell you, oh, you're not manifesting. Mostly that is garbage, and mostly everybody here is on their own unique path. And if it's meant to be that you live in a gorgeous house and you're doing your truest work and making your living from your soul mission, then that gorgeous house will be part of your journey. Right. So get away from focused on the physical and be more in touch with the divine consciousness coming to you and helping you get your great work done.
Perfect. So could you read this since I'm echoing?
Yeah. Astrology, past life regression, and other readings have all indicated that I'm avoiding my power and that my path, this must be an 8 path soul, and I'm still trying to do this. So 8 path souls come in with the intention to learn the right use of power. And that includes money, because in our culture, if you incarnated now, that means you agreed to play the money game. In other past lifetimes, money was not the currency of energy that it is today. And 8 path souls come here to, in other lives, they never stepped up to speak their truth and own their power. So they choose the 8-path journey, where they're going to be forced to take a powerful presence in the world and accumulate power in order to use it for good in the world. And so when you meet an 8-path soul, they're either incredibly broke because they're afraid to step up, or they are incredibly successful because they have stepped up with their work, but now they're funding homeless shelters and they're using their money and power for good. And I always tell the story of Paul Newman, who is a very famous actor, a very famous 8-path soul who, never wanted to really play the money game, but he had so many gifts as an actor and he made a ton of money. And when he went through his own reinvention, he started, his own business that gave all the profits to children with cancer. That's an 8-path life well lived.
Oh, perfect. I got to meet him once.
Oh, did you?
At Denver Grand Prix. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So Amy keeps writing. She wrote, no.
Well, I don't know enough about Amy. I don't know how old she is or where she is in her journey or anything. But Amy, why don't you go to my website, suefrederick.com, and you can either send me a message or you can look at there's some online numerology classes you could take that I've taught and posted on there. And especially my YouTube channel has some of those classes for free that you can just watch on my YouTube. My YouTube is at Sue Frederick, my channel. And you'll see about this path you're on. And I also have a workbook. It's called Sacred Numerology Workbook. And it's on Amazon for $5.99. It'll help you understand your path. So I really encourage people to, immerse yourself in the lesson of the 8 if you're struggling with power and money.
Perfect. She said she's 52, never married, no kids, not totally broke, but not where I'd like to.
Well, you're headed towards second Saturn return, Amy, in your 50s, and that's going to be a huge time of stepping up and owning this power in your way and using it for good in the world. The second Saturn return hits all of us in our mid to late 50s, and it's when the soul goes, hey, you've been hiding out for a while, but now you only have a few conscious decades left in this lifetime. So it's now or never. And people get huge 2x4 nudges to get them to really step up and wake up. Often it's about claiming your divine self in your work, not just going to a career that depletes your soul, that has no meaning for you. By the time we hit our 50s and our second Saturn return, our soul is going, hey, either I'm going to check out now or I've got to find a way to really do my true work in the time that I have left and make my money from it. That is often the call of the second Saturn return.
Wow. So I think I'm a 5. Which is change.
Makes so much sense. Courage and change. I mean, this is why you and I have been friends since the 80s, because you just keep growing no matter what comes at you and shifting and changing. That's what I love about a 5 path. And that's what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I think I make change if there isn't any.
Right.
And I ran the change enablement group at Arthur Anderson.
Yeah.
So with 80 people under me. So it makes sense that that's my number.
Courage and change. And that's what you have. Yeah.
So let's go and talk a little bit about the IONS conference coming up.
Yes, I can't wait.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to see you in person. And next year, I think it's in Arizona.
So, oh, really?
Yeah. So definitely see you next year too.
Oh, that's great.
But just so everyone knows that Sue is a presenter. Are you teaching a workshop too?
Yeah, I'm doing a talk on my 3 shared death experiences and the spiritual awakening lessons they gave me and how they fast forward my growth to align with unconditional love and compassion. And then I'm teaching a workshop I'm really excited about, Sacred Numerology, because my numerology is different from pretty much everybody out there. And I look at it as a life plan that you chose, that you put together for your highest good. And I'll be teaching that and helping people figure out their paths and their personal year reinvention cycles and their soul agreements as I teach through my Sacred Numerology classes. And I'm so excited about that.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Well, I would love to take that, but I'm a volunteer and I don't know
you'll
if I
be
get
working, Kathy.
I know. What am I thinking to keep each year doing all the volunteer work instead of being present? But I want to show the website so people can sign up. There is there is possibility to be online and virtually experience this group, as well as in person, and it's very reasonable. And the audios and the video recordings are also part of your ticket. So if you can't see all the things going on at the same time, it's an ideal way to be able to watch later, and every dinner for a while.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be so great. So many great speakers, people who are friends of mine who I really admire. And the interactive workshops are going to be amazing. So yeah, I just can't wait. And I'm so thrilled it'll be in Arizona next year. That'll make the travel a lot easier.
Yes, a lot easier. But this is the 41st year, I think, of doing this event. And it's the IONS is the organization that helps so many people deal with the reintegration of their lives after a big spiritual experience.
That's right. 2017, I got to see Kathy at the one that was in Denver, and it was a phenomenal experience. The vibration there is so high. There's so much learning going on, so much powerful conversations and interactions. So if you want to kick your vibe up to a higher level, then you want to go to the IONS conference for sure.
Yes, it's like a bubble. When you go into that space, it's as though you're entering a vortex in Sedona.
That's right. The veil is completely thin, hardly there during the conference.
So, Amy, the dates are the 31st. There are workshops starting the 30th, but the 31st of August through the 3rd of September. And the website is conference.ions.org. I put it in the comments.
Yeah. And if you want to go to my website, I've got my speaking information for the conference on my website as well, SueFrederick.com.
Perfect. And you guys, seriously, whether you can come to the conference or not, please check out Sue's work, because this is a gift that you give yourself. I know so many people are used to being in service to others, but you really can't give from an empty jar or an empty pot. So fill up your system, give yourself the gift of knowing and connection to who you really are.
Well, it's been a blessing connecting with you again, Kathy. Such a joy.
Thank you. And I can't wait to see you and give you a hug in person.
I know. God, that'll be so great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.